Welcome back. In this video, I'm going to be sharing a tale. And this is a tale that was told to a journalist, a Guardian journalist. And I want to share with you. It's an incredible story. And it's the story about Irene Fogel Weiss. Monday, 27 January, was the 80th anniversary of the liberation of the Nazi concentration camp at Auschwitz, Poland. 6 survivors, some of whom will be returning to the site for the last time, tell Kate Connolly their story. And I want to share one of these 60 stories. It's the story of Irene Fogel Weiss. She was born in 1930 in Bótrágy, Czechoslovakia, now Batrad, Ukraine. She lives in Virginia, United States, and she will be returning to Auschwitz this year for the third time as a part of the United States presidential delegation, along with a daughter, Lesley Weiss. And this is the story. We lived in Bótrágy, a very small, mostly poor town in Czechoslovakia, with a population of approximately 1,000 people, mainly farming families, including about 10 Jewish families. The town was a typical low-income community with a tailor, a shoemaker, a grocery store, where people struggled to get by, but where everyone knew each other, and there was easy communication between the neighbors, though that didn't mean we were equal. When I was 8 years old, Czechoslovakia broke apart and we became a part of Hungary. That was when our problems started, because the Hungarians were allied with the Nazis. It was a difficult time for Jewish family, as sadly the law no longer protected us, and overnight we lost our civil rights. My father's lumber business was confiscated and given to a non-Jew, and we received no compensation. Jewish people children were thrown out of Hungarian schools. So, right away, we had no choice but to concentrate on hunkering down and try not to bring attention to ourselves. We couldn't ride the train and we had to wear the yellow star. It was free for all, with no law to protect us. It was common for Jewish to get beaten up or turn off the train. It's an incredibly scary feeling when you are exposed to anyone raw feelings and enmity. These young Nazis habitually roamed around and did tremendous damage to many individuals. But at least we were still in our community and were not evicted from our home. So that was some comfort. We didn't have a radio or much access to newspapers, so all the children were reliant on listening to their parents for information. But I remember many things about the course of the war, who was winning and losing, and the repression of Jewish elsewhere. Hungary didn't give up its Jewish population until it was invaded by Nazi Germany in 1944. The very first task the German government gave to Hungarians was to round up Jewish families and deport them to Auschwitz. There was a huge rush to take half a million Hungarian Jews to Auschwitz, and it was completed in just 6 weeks in 147 cattle cars. So, in the spring of 1944, my parents, and their 6 children, the oldest of whom was 17 years and I was 13, found ourselves in the Munkacs ghetto, and from there being taken on cattle cars to Auschwitz in Nazi-occupied Poland. Imagine it like this. 3 generations of our family have lived in the same house, in the same town. They have struggled to raise a family, put 2 kids to school, to feed them all. You have your friends and family. All of a sudden, you are told to leave it and, walk out a single suitcase. I remember the night of the packing very well. Things went in the suitcase. Things were taken out of the suitcase. In the end, my mother filled it with the food. She had cooked and warm clothing and bedding. Then it was full. Plus, we took a watch, some earrings, a wedding ring with us to exchange for food if necessary. The next day, my father was forced to hand over his remaining money to a delegation that included the mayor and the school principal as they rounded up at the town hall. We had been absolutely unaware of such a place as Auschwitz. It was a stunning reversal of the life we had had up until then. And I cannot emphasize enough how utterly scary it is to be at the mercy of your fellow human beings. As a child, I could not understand what we had done to deserve going there. My father surveyed the scene from the train and could see prisoners, uniforms, and barracks, so we immediately thought it was a work camp. And that was reassuring. If we can go work, it can be such a dreadful place. We had heard about the stories in Poland of lots of mass shootings, of Jews, of people being taken into the forest and shot. So it was a relief to see out the window that there were actually a system. Even though we were victims of discrimination, at the stage that's all it was, as we had no clue then that this was a very carefully orchestrated plan of genocide. We could not have imagined that they would kill little children until we realized that killing children was their primary goal, to prevent any new generations, because desperate people will always look to find some sign of hope. We thought to ourselves, even if we have to work, at least we'll see each other occasionally. But the German system was full of this sort of deception. It counted on people's normal perception of things, thinking we were going to a work camp, thinking that you were going to take a shower, when in fact you were going to the gas chambers. That was the ultimate deceit. All of a sudden, you are told to leave it all and work out with a single suitcase. When we arrived, it was, as I later found out, the usual story, though not to us of the time. Our family was torn apart on the platform on arriving. My sister Serena was chosen for slave labor. My mother and the younger children were sent off to one side, and my father and 16-year-old brother to the other side. I held tightly on to the hand of my 12-year-old sister, and for an instant I was mistaken for being older than I was, probably because I was wearing a headscarf that my mother had given me. My sister was sent with my mother while I went to the opposite side. That was the first chance I had to survive. Unbeknown to any of us at the time, two Nazi soldiers had been asked to make a photographic document of the deportation of Hungarian Jews from the moment they got off the train. Through the entire system of arriving, going to the bath house and getting their prison clothes, so I ended up in a picture at the very moment I was separated from my sister. It captures me standing alone without my family on the Auschwitz platform, and I be leaning inwards to see where my little sister has gone. Another picture we discover shows my family waiting in line for the gas chamber. Two little boys, my brothers Reuven and Gerson, are shown dressed in hats, one struggling to put on his winter coat. For a long time I failed to find my mother and was very unhappy, but I spent hours looking at these photos with a magnifying glass, and one day I found a little face sticking out. The pictures only came to light 20 years ago, and despite them showing moments from around 45 years before that, they completely capture the entire experience as it had been in my mind all that time. I was dumbfounded and devastated, having had no idea they existed, and I have spent literally hundreds of hours scoring them, trying to find my father and brother. The pictures have reassured me that I was not imagining it all, as I sometimes thought I might have done. The reality of where we were struck home fairly quickly. I was stationed near crematorium number 4, and we witnessed the columns of unsuspecting women and children entering the gate of the crematorium. They would have been dead within half an hour. When the Hungarian Jews arrived, they had the gas chambers going day and night. How can you wrap your imagination around that? I still can't. I was with my older sister Serena, and we were sent to be forced laborers together in Birkenau section of Auschwitz. Many times we were threatened with separation, but somehow we managed to stay together. Later on, to our great relief, we ran into my mother's two younger sisters, our aunts Rose and Piri, who were in their early 20s. It was like finding our parents. They were such a huge moral and emotional support for us. On about 17 January or 18 January 1945, the SS dragged thousands of us out of the camp to work to Ravensbrück concentration camp deep into central Germany. I don't really know why. We were in terrible straits, with no proper clothes, nothing suitable for marching through the snow. It was as if the cruelty would never end. If anyone sat down out of exhaustion, they were shot. Later, we were transported yet again, and my aunt Piri became ill and was killed. As the Soviet approached, the SS left, and I, Serena, and Rose took shelter in an empty house nearby. The Russians came, but for some reason left again immediately, so we were left to fend for ourselves. We spent months trying to get to Prague, where we knew we had some relatives, and from there we went to the Sudeterland. I got to go to school. My sister found work in a factory, and Rose was sick at home with tuberculosis. We initially had no idea what had happened to the rest of the family and had no access to a phone. But on buildings everywhere, lists were put up stating who was still alive. Everyone you met, you asked. Every meeting of refugees was dominated by trying to find out where your relatives were. Eventually, I discovered that of around 100 people from my town who were deported, only about 10 survived, only 2 of whom were children, my sister and me. But there was no one parent and the child who lived. All of them were killed. And this is my last chance to make sure this tragedy is not forgotten. Irene Fogel Weiss. This is the touching story I want to share with you. Thank you so much for watching.